attacking a British base in British soil, by the way, Akrotiri is British soil, is mind-boggling and quite shocking. And I just definitely think that at least I can tell you from the viewpoint from the Middle East. In the Middle East, there's no mercy for those who don't make it clear that it's unacceptable.
Well, joining me now is the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog. Hello to you.
Hello, Adam. Good morning.
There's been a lot of debate, particularly in the United States, about the war aims against Iran. What are Israel's war aims?
To delineate their capability of long-range missiles and their ability to rush to the bomb. These are the objectives. There's no formal objective of toppling the regime, but it is obvious to us that the nation is fed up of the regime. And as we've just seen 2 months ago, when they butchered about 50,000 of their own people, that there's a desire for change. And it will be an opportunity because clearly the regime has weakened substantially.
Donald Trump has talked about total surrender. Is that one of the things that Israel expects, a formal surrender by the regime?
So I'll tell you, the real issue is, because I believe in long-term processes, in this respect, you can see a major trajectory of change because Iran has been the source of evil of this region. And by the way, in challenging Europe as well and the free world for quite some time. If Keir Starmer says that there were about 10 or 20 events in Britain last year only where there are potential terror threats from Iran, you ask yourself, why are they doing this? All over the world, by the way, spreading billions of dollars just for terror. And it's about time that there's a coalition of nations which tells them enough is enough. We're fed up. And I want to commend our allies here in the Middle East who are being challenged heavily by their bombardment, by their missiles, by their attacks, by their threats, together with us. And I want to thank President Trump for his immense leadership in this sense.
Of course, your counterpart in Iran has apologized for those attacks on allies.
But you see, he apologized, and then 5 minutes later, they kept on bombarding the Bahrainis, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, and all the way, by the way, to a British base in Cyprus, which I think is quite mind-boggling when you think about it.
So if the aim is to totally degrade the weapons capability of Iran, how would the change in the regime come about? You're not talking about imposition or choosing the next leader like Donald Trump.
Changing of regimes is something that happens the way societies decide it will happen. That regime has been so onerous on its people, and by the way, dysfunctional. We remember the shortage of water, infrastructure, the economy in deep trouble. We know and see it. It's a tragedy because Iran and the Iranian people are brilliant people and talented people. But for me, what exemplified the situation is the protests all over the world of Iranian expats and Israelis hugging each other and saying peace can be achieved. There could be a major change in the region, which can be a force of good for the entire universe.
So how long is the bombardment and the attack on Iran going to go on for? Is it a question of weeks, months?
I'm not involved in the day-to-day because I'm a head of state without executive powers. The model of the presidency in Israel is somewhat derived from British monarchy and other European countries.
No, I appreciate that.
So I cannot give you a full-fledged assessment in an honest way. What I can say, though, is that what you see is not what you get. We know that the Iranian regime is in full disarray. We know that they have huge problems from within, not only command and control, but huge, huge arguments and problems all over the place. We know that there's already a lot of irritation and a lot of things are simmering from within. And I will leave it at that at this moment, and let's wait and see.
I mean, because comments from Donald Trump and indeed from Prime Minister Netanyahu seem to imply that the rate of attack is still increasing. And of course, we had the attack on the Iranian oil refinery recently. I mean, was that necessary?
So I'm not discussing each and every target. What I'm saying is, you don't take into account the amount of attacks that they're attacking infrastructure all over the region. Even this morning, they attacked a desalination plant in Bahrain, and let alone they're attacking Israeli sites as well. I think that the real issue is whether and how, and the Iranian army, the Iranian infrastructure, says to itself, why do we have to be in this war serving a group of extreme ayatollahs who took our people's money and spend it instead of on our children, spending it on spreading hate and terror? Really, literally. You have terror cells all over the world that are affiliated with Iran and its empire of evil. And these terror cells never
Yeah,
relax for a moment, never, ever relax for a moment. And in addition, they started rushing to the bomb again in a very, very discreet site that was very difficult to reach.
but when it comes to attacking the oil or blocking the Straits of Hormuz, there are severe economic impacts, for Europe, for us here, in terms of the cost of energy and the impact on our economies. And, it does look as if the actions being taken now by Israel and the United States are exacerbating that.
I don't think, as you can see on Bandar Abbas and all those infrastructure, they were not hurt or hit by anybody. And definitely the Straits of Hormuz, it's an issue of international maritime routes. But let me just say the following. There's a lot of questions all the time, especially from British media, quite interesting to me, only about the issue of the legality of the action. We seem to forget that Iran never operated according to international law. Look how they hijacked, like how they hijacked Lebanon, okay, with Hezbollah. And rather than giving their weapons to the legitimate government of Lebanon, which actually issued an unbelievable order and writ over the weekend prohibiting the Revolutionary Guards of Iran to enter the country, and said that they object vehemently to the attacks of Hezbollah over Israel. They keep on doing that because they have instructions from Iran to fire at Israel, and that's what they've been doing in our north. So they have these proxies all over the world. They're operating them. And I want to tell you something. There comes a moment where decent nations rise up and say, enough is enough is enough, over and out. And that's exactly the moment.
So, do you believe the British government was wrong then to say that the initial attack was against international law and therefore the UK would not support it in any way?
So I definitely disagree. We did it exactly according to international law, including with our American allies. And I don't want to go into the debate in Britain about the policies. All I'm saying is that attacking a British base in British soil, by the way, Akrotiri is British soil, is mind-boggling and quite shocking. And I just definitely think that at least I can tell you from the viewpoint from the Middle East. In the Middle East, there's no mercy for those who don't make it clear that it's unacceptable. And I definitely hope that the Iranians don't interpret it as a sign of weakness.
Are you surprised that the UK wasn't ready, that didn't have ships in the Mediterranean?
Well, now they're having, and I know that they're beefing up their presence in the region and also in Cyprus, and I'm very much, appreciative of that. All I'm saying is that all nations who are being threatened by Iran, and they have been threatened by Iran, Europe is being threatened by Iran endlessly, should understand that this is a moment of truth and a real hope for change in the region, which can impact the future of all our lives in Europe and elsewhere.
There is a question, though, as to whether Israel is using this conflict with Iran for expansion by moving into Lebanon militarily. And also, we've seen settler violence. I think this weekend, 3 Palestinians have been killed in the occupied territories. Is the
Let's
push?
put these things in perspective. We don't have any territorial aspirations in Lebanon or elsewhere. And with respect to the West Bank, we will be dealing with this forcefully. We are dealing with this forcefully with our legal system. It is a high point of priority in our government, and it's totally unacceptable. And I condemn any such violence if it occurred. Right now, it's under investigation.
Well, I mean, 3 people are dead, aren't they?
No, it depends on the circumstances of the case. So there are there are complaints and opinions from here and there. One has to investigate it, and it's under thorough investigation this morning.
And as far as Gaza is concerned, does Israel now accept that figure of 70,000 Palestinians killed since October the 7th?
Well, first of all, we have big arguments because we know for sure that many of those killed were affiliated with Hamas. Now there has to be a moment where we move to the next phase, meaning that Hamas must be disarmed. Hamas is a proxy of Iran. Hamas initiated this horrible slaughter on October 7th, something that none of us wanted or seeked any war. And they butchered our citizens, by the way, those who supported peace more than anybody else. And since then, we've been dragged into that war and we fought vehemently because the entire underneath of Gaza was a terror city. We only dismantled 30% of the tunnels, if at all. So there are still about 65% of those huge tunnels, infrastructures of terror in people's homes, living rooms, mosques, and shops.
As you're probably aware, public opinion shows that in this country, 49%, the plurality, oppose this war. There are persistent protests, indeed there were this weekend, in support of the Palestinians. I just wonder, looking at everything that has happened since the horrors of October the 7th, whether you feel now the state of Israel is more or less secure?
So I would say that I would look at it from a different perspective. Margaret Macmillan in her incredible books, she always, especially one of her most recent books, she said you can emerge from war with all the terrible facets of war, and they are indeed terrible. You can emerge into a positive direction. The world has changed in many directions following such conflicts. Now there's a unique opportunity, really, I mean, to reconfigure the Middle East, to come to terms with the fact that Israel is here to stay forever, to seek peace with our Palestinian neighbors, and to seek peace with the entire Middle East. It wasn't enabled because Iran constantly tried to derail it. There is a claim, which I cannot argue with, that as we were getting close to rapprochement with Saudi Arabia, what you call normalization, October 7th occurred. And people put the brunt on Iran. It could be true that forces were there to derail the fact that we are included in the region more and more. Now there is a unique opportunity. We need to look far away how our kids move to peace together. For this, we need to undermine the extremists. What you have is the jihadist regime working day in, day out, endlessly to create terror and undermine moderate Islam, Christians, and Jews anywhere. That's their belief. And that is why this change is so essential.
And if you get that change, will that include an independent Palestinian state?
We will get there when we will get there. And this is something totally different from this war at this moment. But this is a question that will be discussed as well in the Israeli political arena. Everywhere, as you know, Israel is going to elections this year, and many decisions will be taken.
President Herzog, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.